Hello, good afternoon students. Welcome in our new video of class 7 SST or geography portion. And students, in that we are on chapter 4, air and the atmosphere. In previous video, students, we discussed about significance of the atmosphere, and now in this video, students, we are going to discuss greenhouse effect. Very important point and very important topic, students, greenhouse effect. So before I start my topic, student, there is a figure which is given in your course book, and I have also made this figure on board. And students, first we have to understand that what is greenhouse effect, and before we understand greenhouse effect, we have to understand the word greenhouse. What is the word greenhouse? Greenhouse gases, which are greenhouse gases, and effects of that gases is known as greenhouse effect. If we talk about what is greenhouse gases, so students, suppose that this is Earth and this is the atmosphere of the Earth. So this atmosphere contains some gases like carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, dust particles, water vapors. So these all gases and dust particles and water vapors are known as greenhouse gases. Greenhouse gases. All gases which are present in atmosphere, but in that gases mainly methane, that is CH4, carbon dioxide, that is CO2, ozone, that is O3, and water vapors and dust particles. So mainly these gases are greenhouse gases. Why these gases has been known as greenhouse gases, we have to explain this thing. Students, come to this figure. In this figure there is a sun. The short wave radiation heats always go to the earth, from sun to the earth. So in that, this short wave radiation heats which go to the earth. So among some radiation has been reflected back, and that is returned. Some radiation escapes. Some radiation reflected back and escapes. What is escapes? वापस चले जाते हैं. What is escapes? वापस चले जाते हैं. So in that radiation of sun, which is radiation of sun's heat is there, and in that radiation, some part of radiation goes back or escapes, and some part of radiation retained in this atmosphere. What is retained? रह जाता है. What is escapes? वापस चले जाता है. What is retained? रह जाता है. What is radiation of Earth? So radiation of sun. The radiation of sun's heat, short wave radiation heats, which goes to the earth. In that radiation, in that heat. So if we talk about the radiation, sun's heat radiation, so simply we have to understand the sun's heat, and that sun's heat absorbed by Earth's atmosphere by these gases. Understand? Some radiation escapes, some heat escapes. It goes back, but some radiation retained in the atmosphere. So which gases are responsible to retain these radiation? So these are gases which are responsible. Methane, CH4, methane, carbon dioxide, and ozone, and water vapors and dust particles. These are major gases which are responsible to retain the radiation in Earth atmosphere to retain the radiation in Earth atmosphere. So from start, student, I am going to explain. The heat of sun comes to the Earth. Some heats trapped in atmosphere, some heats escapes back or go back. So students, this retained heat in carbon dioxide, methane and ozone, when the time of sun's heat go back, when the evening time comes or the night time comes, so these warm gases, these radiated gases or the trap of heats, the sun's heat which is trapped in these gases is known as greenhouse gases. And the gases which is trapping the sun's heat and re-radiate the atmosphere or re-warm the atmosphere in night. So these gases is known as greenhouse gases, and the warmth and the heat and the re-radiation which is being happened by these greenhouse gases is, and the effect on the atmosphere after radiation or re-radiation of the sun's heat which is trapped in greenhouse gases. So by this gas heat, the temperature of Earth's surface becomes more. So this effect, this impact of greenhouse gases on the atmosphere is known as greenhouse gas effect or greenhouse effect. So very important, student, this is. So gases which are known as greenhouse gases, that is methane CH4, carbon dioxide CO2, ozone O3, dust particles and water vapors. These all ingredients known as greenhouse gases, and these greenhouse gases trap the sun's heat, and when the sun goes back, at that time the trapped heat in these gases re-radiate the atmosphere of the Earth and re-warm the atmosphere of the Earth. So that is why sometimes this carbon dioxide is essential or important to make the temperature of the atmosphere warmer or warm. But sometimes when these warms become more, when the emission of carbon dioxide becomes occurred more, and when these greenhouse gases becomes more in atmosphere, so that time the radiation of Earth's trapped heat, sun's trapped heat becomes more, and the atmosphere's temperature becomes more, and this lead to global warming. That is also known as global warming. This heat, the increase in this temperature of Earth's surface or Earth's atmosphere is known as global warming, and this is only because of the greenhouse gases. If these greenhouse gases increases, so that time this radiation or re-radiation of the Earth, sun's heat which is trapped in these gases becomes more, and that is why the temperature of the Earth's surface and the atmosphere becomes more. That is also known as global warming. Now students, we see in your course book page number 39 our topic greenhouse effect. So greenhouse gases include carbon dioxide, methane, ozone, reach the Earth atmosphere is reflected back. some heat which is reached to the earth's surface, some heat reflected back, some heat reflected back or escaped, that is opposite. Some heat escapes back or reflected back, and some heat retained in the atmosphere. So students, while some of it is absorbed and re-radiated by greenhouse gases, which we have earlier discussed, that these gases trap this heat of sun, retain this heat of sun in atmosphere, catch this heat of sun in atmosphere, some radiation reflected back, some radiation escapes back, and some radiation retained by these greenhouse gases, and this retained or captured heat re-radiate or re-warm the atmosphere in the absence of sunlight. So that is known as greenhouse gas effect. So students, while some are absorbed and radiated by greenhouse gases, this heating of the Earth's atmosphere is called the greenhouse effect. Due to various human activities such as deforestation and burning of fossil fuels, there has been a sudden increase in the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So by burning of fossil fuels and deforestation, that we cut the plants and trees, what is it? That is deforestation. And due to deforestation and due to burning of fossil fuels, so there is sudden increase in the Earth's atmosphere temperature, and the increased level of carbon dioxide has led to increased absorption of heat. So if the carbon dioxide in this atmosphere increases more, at that time the heat will trap, the heat radiation will trap more, and the increased level of the carbon dioxide has led to increased absorption of heat. So when the carbon dioxide in this atmosphere increased, at that time the heat, trapping of heat will more, the absorption of heat will more in this atmosphere. This has caused gradual rise in global temperatures known as global warming. So students, by this, in this temperature, there is a sudden increasement, there is a increase of ratio and proportion, and in that simultaneously and repeatedly this is growing, this is increasing, the amount of global warming is increasing, and that is why this is a danger. So these greenhouse gases cause danger in survival of life, because the instinct temperature, the increased temperature can harmful for our survival. And in that we have seen that, students, greenhouse effect. Now students, page number 40. Global warming has led to the melting of ice caps and glaciers. So as we know, we have 7 continents. In that there is Antarctica and some Arctic region. So there is snow caps and glaciers always floating in the water, and those ice caps and glaciers are responsible to cool the temperature of the globe. So they decrease the temperature, they decrease the global warming. But when this global warming increases, that time that ice caps or those glaciers become melting, starts melting. So that is why, which has consequently resulted in rise of the sea level. So as we know, if that ice caps and the glaciers melted, so that time this water level, but obvious, will be increased, and this water level of sea will increase. So by that, the nearby cities of the sea like Bombay and some other cities like Gujarat and some other states, so there will be decline, that will be swept away in water because of the increase of the water level in the sea or the sea banks. Next, as we see, it also affects weather patterns. So by that, the weather patterns will also affected, because if the sea level will increase, okay, the rain will be more there, and at the same time the warming will be increased, the global warming will be increased, and at the same time the temperature will be risen. That is why in winter season, it may occur that there would be heat temperature, there would be harsh temperature, there would be more sunlight and more radiation in the time of winter because of global warming. And at the same time we can examine and we can notice that in summer time it can be cold temperature, it can be more so mainly in summer time there is more summer and more heat, but in winter the cooling of the temperature of earth and this globe is increasing day by day, and this is known as global warming. And as we know, by these glaciers and ice caps will be melted, and by this the temperature would be more. And as we know, to live sustainable life and to survive ecosystem in our earth or on our planet, it would be harder to survive if the global warming will be more, and if the temperature of this earth will be more, that time the survival of life will be harder. So students, that is why therefore if the emission of carbon dioxide remains unchecked, so two things we have to do. First, we have to decrease the global warming, and to decrease the global warming we have to check this carbon dioxide, the emission of carbon dioxide, the release of carbon dioxide would be lesser, would be decreased, and have to be decreased. Only then we can check this global warming, we can stop this global warming, because if the amount of carbon dioxide will be more in this atmosphere, the global warming will be more, because the stripping of sun's heat will be more and radiation of the sun's heat will be more. But when this carbon dioxide emission, when the release of carbon dioxide will be less in atmosphere, the global warming will be less. And for that we have to do afforestation, we have to plant more and more plants and trees. By that the emission of oxygen will be more, so then the carbon dioxide will be, so we have to do less pollution, we have to use some kind of machineries and factories and all things. By that the emission of carbon dioxide should be lesser, should be less, so by that this greenhouse gas effect will be less. And for that there is climate, Paris Climate Agreement was there, some Geneva Convention, and so many conventions had been held in the past and in running process, and these all conventions and agreements and meetings were and is going on for the decrease of global warming, at the same time decrease of greenhouse gas affected, decrease of emission of carbon dioxide. So this is being in process by the government. And students, we see therefore if the emission of carbon dioxide remains unchecked, the global temperature will continue to rise. It may even cause submerging of coastal cities. As I said previously, students, if the melting of ice caps and glaciers would be more, so that time the sea level will be increased, and the cities nearby sea coast, that is Malabar coast and Coromandel coast, and these all cities and states like Gujarat and Maharashtra and Mumbai and Goa can be swept away, can become coastal cities, and submerging of coastal cities, that means that coastal cities will be declining in water. The cities that lie in coastal areas will be declining in water, and island nations in the near future. And the island, like Andaman Island, some islands are there like Lakshadweep, and different islands are in sea. That all islands will be swept away, will be drowned by water level that is increased by glaciers melting and ice caps melting because of global warming and greenhouse gas effect. So students, I think I have been discussed appropriate for this topic. Now there is summary, we have to check it. Atmosphere is the blanket of our around us. Some definitions are there. Atmosphere is our blanket. What is blanket? It is the meaning of blanket, that is Kambal. And we see nitrogen and oxygen are the two major gases that make up the atmosphere, and we see in our atmosphere there are two major gases, oxygen and nitrogen. Oxygen is responsible for animals and human beings like surviving, as we take oxygen to live, and plants and trees take carbon dioxide, which is also in atmosphere, and nitrogen is also which is 78% in atmosphere, and nitrogen is the main food of plants and trees, directly and indirectly, that we have discussed in previous classes, that is nitrogen circle. Nitrogen is taken by the roots of the plants and animals, which is converting minerals and make starch of plants and trees, and photosynthesis. So nitrogen is also very important, also like oxygen, and plants and trees use directly indirectly nitrogen to make, and to making fertilizers, chemical fertilizers. Also nitrogen is used. And the atmosphere has 5 layers: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, thermosphere, and exosphere. We have been reading all things, and the presence of the atmosphere makes the Earth habitable planet. So the living life is here only because of the atmosphere, and the heating of Earth's atmosphere due to the trapping of the sun's energy by the greenhouse gases is called greenhouse effect. So in this you can define these things by summary. And the global increase in temperatures due to large scale emission of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has led to global warming, and the emission of carbon dioxide led the heat more of the atmosphere, and by the global warming is there. So students, we have completed this chapter. In homework we have to write a summary on greenhouse gas effect, and if there is question and query regarding this topic, you can ask on my number. Students, till then, read more and more for upcoming examination, and then have a nice day. Thank you. All the best.